Hello, hello. So we are starting. And just as a reminder, we are live both on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So you can watch anywhere you want. And when you write comments or ask questions, I will see them here. And just pay attention that there's a little bit of a delay, as always, with anything streaming. So yeah, I guess that's all that we need as far as setup. I think we are good to go. And if you have ever been to one of the mini classes before, like the name says, it's mini, it's shorter. So I present 10 to 15 minutes of content, and then we reserve 10 to 15 minutes of all sorts of questions and interactions. So long as there are questions, I'll stay until 10:30. If we don't have that many questions, we'll end as soon as all the questions are answered. And if by any chance you don't get your questions answered, that's totally fine. I'll figure out a way to answer that to you either in the comments after, or I'll reach out to you. Don't worry. Sometimes streaming just makes things, like I miss some of the comments timely, but don't worry about that. No question will go unanswered if I know how to answer, but I'll try at least to give you a little insight if I can't answer directly. So if you're here, you're interested in the Grow coaching model, you're probably interested in coaching somehow. So let's get started then. Let's go all the way into content. And just to brace yourselves, I tend to be a little fast. I want to pack a lot of value here, but you can always put it on the comment and say, Petula, please slow down. I'm lost. I will definitely look for that. So if we look into the grow model, so why did I decided to talk about the grow model? On a very personal level, it was the first model I worked with. I really appreciate this model. I think any beginner coach has a very safe path starting with it. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, coaching can be damaging when you don't know what you're doing. Some people are borderline therapists, and coaching and therapy are not the same. So we really need to watch out. Coaching has a code of ethics, have a series of disciplines that we pay attention to before we can call ourselves coaches. But coaching is also a skill. So if you're here, you're probably a scrum master, an agile coach, or an aspiring one. That is definitely half of the people that I work with. But I also work with a lot of managers and directors, and they themselves want to develop more this skill, because coaching is a skill. I wanted to start thinking about all of these things. If you can call yourself whatever you want and pile up all the good stuff, all the good knowledge and skills that you can. That's how I really appreciate looking into coaching. And grow is accessible. It's really simple. And hello, Marwan. Hi. I'm not sure if I said your name right. I hope I did. You sound that's how I would say. You feel free to correct me publicly if I said your name wrong. Um, so today, covering this model, what I also love about Grow, it's not only it's easy, beginner friendly for the approach. You will see, I hope, that it's very problem solve oriented. And if you know coaching a little bit, you know that sometimes in coaching we're not so interested in the problem, but we'll leave that to another mini class or master class. And today, let's then think about, well, Grow is easy, it's affordable for anybody starting with coaching safely, and it is problem solving oriented. So let's jump into it. Hi, Ben. Hello. So the Grow model, just let's situate ourselves a little bit. So why talking about coaching? I am using here the definition of the creator of the Grow model, Sir John Whitmore. And I think we hear a lot about coaching unlocking people's potential, and this is really true. But it's their own potential, their own performance, and solving their own problems. And that is true for teams too. We can look at things and say, this is a problem, let me help you solve it. But the thing about coaching is that you help people identify and solve for the problem. So you're instrumental with that skill of coaching, but you're not really solving for the person. So it's not you giving the advice, it's not you telling what the solution should be, even though you can have insights. Guaranteed that we're helping people here learn by themselves rather than us teaching them. So it's not better or worse than teaching, teaching knowledge, but it is different. And why then coaching model? We are talking about the grow model. I always like to situate things a little bit in the beginning. So if you are familiar with coaching, you already know this. If you're not familiar, the any model that you use will offer a structure for the coaching conversation. Having a simple chat, what we are doing here, for example, today, is not coaching. A conversation is not coaching. Coaching has a structure, and every coach will follow a model. I today have my own model. It's very natural after many years that you develop your own, inspired by other things you've seen, and a mashup of things that you learned and you feel really comfortable with. But the reality is, whether it's your own, whether you follow a fantastic model like Grow, it's the only thing that you bring into the conversation. A conversation that is unstructured, or even with some structure, doesn't really mean coaching, but coaching will have a structure, and everything else actually is the coachee, the content, the conversation, what they want to talk about, where they want to go, how they want to go about it. This is all on the coachee, on the person, or on the people, the team being coached. So now we understand why we have a model, what coaching really is. So let's jump right into the model. So that's what the model looks like, and it moves in clockwise direction. So this is a funky drawing that I use usually in my own coaching course. This coaching framework, what I love is that it can also be used in mentoring, although it goes beyond mentoring, and it also can be used by people solving problems alone. But what I appreciate is how it really guides you into formulating the pace and the questions that will be the helpful coaching questions in the end. So, like I said, I really find this one a fantastically objective model that will help a rookie coach to not make any big mistake. Because if you make any mistake here, if the coaching conversation doesn't go well when you try to use Grow, the only thing that happens is that maybe you didn't help so much in your team fixing or solving their problem. When you're coaching for personal growth, for example, it's very damaging if you do something wrong. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about problem solving, and how it can be frustrating, but it's not really damaging if you do even if you do like a serious mistake, you skip a step, you ignore something. It's really not that complicated as far as the results, but the potential for solving for achieving success is actually high. So I like the ROI of this model a lot for when we are starting coaching. That's how I started. It served me well. Many of my students use that as well. Now, let's jump right into it. So, the first piece of the model says, look ahead, start with a goal. It's about what could be, starting with the end in mind. So, even if you have a problem that you want to solve, don't get stuck into the problem. And I know it's not uncommon. We mentioned lean and we talk about 5 whys and dig deep. There is value in that, and there's a place for that. But in coaching, we really try to not get people sucked into the problem and put them more into the perspective seeking, and and creating understanding, and especially creating move forward. So here we are really talking about dreaming unconstrained. So sometimes the problem in front of us is not actually the problem that needs to be solved, or even the problem that we want to solve. So that's why we really look forward. So the problem allows us to start the conversation, but maybe what we want is even bigger than that. So, by the way, in the end, I just want to make sure that you know that I have a guide for you on the Grow model. We'll talk more about it later. But yeah, so I just want to put that out there. But then Go, it's really about look at the long term, on the short term. The problem you're solving right now with the team, maybe it's fixing the bill. The Jenkins is never, Jenkins is never green. But is that really the problem? Actually, what we're thinking about is we want to be a zero bug, zero defects escape team. So the goal goes a little beyond, and then you can have a more shorter term goal, which can involve the Jenkins build that is never really where we want it to be. It's never up more than 2 hours a day, etc. And here are some of the questions that you would be asking. As you can see, They are forward facing, forward thinking questions. Then there is the reality, and the reality is about understanding what is. So we talked about what could be, and now we talk about what is. And here, once again, avoid spiraling down only on the problem. What we really want here is to understand both positives and negatives. What's really happening? And even before, what is the impact of what's happening in you and your work? And what is the impact of fixing it, really? So it's a more holistic view. What are the obstacles that stop us? But for example, what are some of the strengths that we have today that could actually help us into closing the gap between what we have today and where we want to go? And we want to look at everything, the facts. We want to separate facts from assumptions. So we test things a little bit in there. We want to also understand, when we look at the reality, the consequences of doing nothing, because it's possible that doing nothing is what we want, and it's also possible that it's even more hurtful and more complicated to absolutely do nothing. Do we really let the Jenkins build never be up? Do we really let our planning session be that disorganized, that unstructured? So the thing here is that if you were in my other mini class, you're going to notice that when you look at these questions here, you're going to remember that in the other class, I talked about questions worth answering. And I wanted to, as a coach, to start thinking that, there are questions that have more quality, that are better. And those are the questions you want to be asking around. So the next step, then, you dreamed, you've thought about the goal, you checked in with the reality. There's a gap. You understand what you have, but you also want to look now into the options that you have. I'm pretty sure when you have a problem to be fixed, you probably have someone saying, "Here's the answer," or maybe you have two answers. And the reality is that in the option step, when you're coaching your team, you want to go way beyond two answers. You want to go back to unconstrained thought. Don't filter anything. When you look at options, you want to consider possibility. Look at everything and anything that you can stop doing, start doing, do less of, do more of. So it's really more like a brainstorming, and even silly options are valid here. So if we say, no, Jenkins is just like, I can't, the only solution is that we start from scratch. Okay, that is also an option. It doesn't mean you're gonna go there. It is a way more expensive option. But hey, let's put it there. Let's not filter anything. That is power in being very creative and thinking about the solutions that you can use. And there is also, I would love to point out here, to things that worked, people you could talk to. We want to also, in the process of helping people solve the problem, we want them to be reminded that they are resourceful. There are resources for them. There are people that they're never alone. They can always count on someone else, ask things, and just be out there. And then finally, there is the will. It's time now to filter. We were unconstrained with options, and now we're filtering. Now you're reflecting. Now we are passing a little bit more judgment. From all of these options, there is a difference between what I can do and what I will do. So when you ask your team now, you really want to go with where is the energy for solving things? I don't think they will have the energy to redo the entire build and start from scratch. Maybe they do. I don't know. It's up to them to decide. So it's where the energy is where the willingness to move forward is. So, what happens in the final step of the conversation is that you want not only that the coachee, the person or the team being coached, you want them not only to leave the session, with a plan. You want them to be ready to take action and be accountable. So, things that you're going to look into are obviously, what are you going to be doing? What's the plan? So what is it going to be? But also, are you constrained by time? What is do you need to do one thing before the other? Who else are you involving? How will you know if it's working? And have that element of accountability. Quite often, when people start with coaching, they don't pay attention to this aspect of, it's not just about preparing everything and saying that you're going to go and you do, but it's also doing and also reflecting after you've done it. So this is really something to keep in mind. That is the bulk of the model. This is just a reminder here, folks, that I want to say. So I do have a toolkit. This is live now, so I don't have a link, but the specific guide will be on the YouTube channel with the link there for you to download. So you don't need to be, trying to remember things. And also, this mini class, I'm going to be giving you the chapters. I really do go back and do a little bit of a support system in the video on YouTube. And we're about to open for questions, but before we open for question, let me just say this about the what else is that's all there is. The model is you ask those 4 types of questions and boom, in 30 minutes it's all over. Quite so. However, the model is simple. It's supposed to be simple, but there is something that I wanna really invite you to realize, that if this was all that, right? In 30 minutes, we're all great at coaching and solve everybody else's problem and our problems and etc. But what is different though is that over time you're going to be noticing that the quality, there are better questions to be asked than others. And what make those questions better? If you heard of powerful questions, that's where we are. So not all questions really land themselves very nicely. You pay attention to the context, and there are certain types, how you phrase things, that will have more impact. And there's a lot that can be said also at how you listen for. A great question depends on the amount of listening that you were doing as well. So if you're new to coaching, or if you somehow feel a little bit insecure about coaching, you're going to notice that you feel like, what do I even ask here? Sorry to say this, but I've been there as well. No shame in admitting. No, nobody starts here, right? We all start here. You were not listening. You are not listening in the way that you need to listen for coaching. You're probably listening to respond. You're listening in a problem solving type of way. That's not the same type of listening that we need for coaching. So when you have that, you will have better questions. The questions that you put in your grow will be much more powerful. That is also what's going to be giving you confidence in the process. When you feel like, oh, I won't have questions, I have to prepare a few questions in advance, you really have to trust that everything that you need is in front of you with the people that you're having the coaching conversation. I always say, if you follow me for a little while, you know that I say that confidence comes from competence. So as you develop the competence on listening in the right way and asking better questions, trust and believe, the confidence in the process will be easy. But there are also things about partnering in the space. So as a coach, you partner. Remember that I said in the beginning, you bring a process and you partner, you dance with the client, and you create a space in which they can really explore the problem and the solutions. So all this needs to be in place for the growth to be really impactful. Now, does it really work just without much thought here? Surprisingly, yes. So just go and try and test. I can guarantee you that you can start having results, even if minor. And the more you tap in elements like these ones that I'm showing here, then you're going to see that the results are even more powerful. But the model works. It's 40 years old, almost 30 years old at least, and it's very used out there. It took me, I think, 7 years out of 11, I would say, to go from a struggling scrum master to an actual effective, confident, and competent coach as I am today. I would say, however, that it took me that long because back in the day, I didn't really know where to go and how to find really information. There were a few books here and there, but we didn't have all the communities we have today. A mini class like this with you, I don't remember having these things at all available. It was certainly a different time. So today, even the courses, you couldn't just go anywhere and get certified as a coach, for example. It was not so simple. But today it is different. And I'm really, really convinced that you can become a fantastic coach. And by the way, if you have questions, you can start putting them on the chat. But yeah, so I just would like to say this then. In half of that time, it took me a long time. It doesn't need to take for you today that much time. I would say 3 years. 4 is such a solid time for you to be a fantastic coach. I know it's more than in a year, but Coaching is not exactly like other types of professions in which you just do a couple of things and get results right away. You really need to hone in on. It's a kind of skill that you really need to gain a little bit of maturity. That being said, though, one of the things I want to say here before we go to questions is this: if you are already fascinated, if it's something that you really are excited, you want to take that next step into becoming a fantastic coach, I will invite you here. I'm running, if you know my company, All Things Agile, we run one of the courses that we're really known for is our Agile coaching course, and we're running the final cohort. And after this, I'm going to go for a very big break because I have other stuff coming up in the pipeline. But this is our final course. It's definitely my favorite, and we absolutely cover all these things and other coaching models as well. It's I do have a ridiculous amount of experience to share in the agile and the coaching space. So if something that you're really excited, like I said, I'm stopping for the next 5 months, and this one is going to be really a blast. It's going to be the last one that we're going to run in a long time. And now we are ready for questions, and I do see that we are, yeah, it's okay, we have two questions. I'll go with the first one I'm seeing here. So sorry folks, sometimes it's not synchronized, but um, thank you, Ben. The main difference between coaching and just asking questions, especially as a Scrum Master. I love this. So, Ben, a lot of the questions that we could just be asking, they are fantastically coaching questions in a way. That is to say, so let's see, if we come back here. Um, what has worked in the past for you? That is, you're sprinkling coaching when you ask something, because this question is powerful. And when you start understanding what powerful questions are, you kind of notice that you can sprinkle coaching. There is a coaching conversation. It has literally a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a structure to respect in there. But there is what you're talking in our life as Scrum Master. Sometimes it's just like help people get situated, and then they can stop spinning like headless chickens. So when you just, they're just crazy, can't find a solution, and then there you come, Ben, and you ask, well folks, wait a minute, what has worked in the past? And people can start already situating themselves and moving forward. So you just offered a fantastic question. You didn't really coach the team, but this is one example of a powerful question, which is something that exists in anything. When you're mentoring people, you can also offer very beautiful questions. If you're listening, if you're really trying to remove yourself from the problem, you're going to come up with amazing, amazing questions. So I hope that answered. But if you want me to then explore a little bit deeper, we definitely have the time, and we will do so. The other question that I'm seeing here is about it's actually about the options. So yeah, what's the difference between just asking people to list their options? There's something missing here in the question, I guess. Okay, the difference between just asking people to list their options, I guess, opposed to something else. You are right. So when you look at this, just saying, what are your options? Just like that, and you can think that that's not exactly that's one example of a question that per se alone, it's not really that powerful. But for example, have you been on a team that is really feeling like disillusioned, and not feeling like they have any possibility at all, and when you ask them, well, what are your options, and the team is kind of like, well, we didn't even think that we had options here. It can happen, that sometimes people feel that someone else just keeps asking them to do stuff and they don't have a voice on things. But that is really not true, and this could be super powerful, even though it's such a simple question, right, that normally you wouldn't necessarily consider a coaching question. So I hope I answered. It was a little bit broken there. And then what I will do is that the mini classes are just a way for us to interact, but I run master classes as well, and those are free. And I also have videos on YouTube. So I'll figure out between those two what is the best way. Okay. So we'll definitely go deeper. This is just a nice teaser and a way for us to interact. And Nicolas is asking me, do you think it's possible to adapt by starting with the problem when we feel that the coachee needs to be listened and need empathy before being able to cognitively move forward to an ideal situation? This is really nice. This is absolutely so. What we have here with Nicolas saying is, well, we are going to move forward, right? Start with the end of and in mind. What is it that you want to solve? But yeah, like the team is extremely deflated. They had a horrible sprint review. Like everybody feels like they got crapped on, like the questions were awful. The client wasn't happy. You absolutely right. And that shows, among many things, that is great coaching that you don't gonna, okay, guys, that's okay. That's okay. It was bad. Right now, what is your goal moving forward? Like, come on, that's not the feeling. That's not what's really happening in here. So what you were saying is absolutely right. So at this moment, it's really just what's happening here, who needs to say something, this, what do you need, in fact, what is it that you need now? Sometimes the team just need to disband for the day, like that's it, we just want to go home, it's the weekend, that is perfectly fine. Sometimes they just want to talk. You're absolutely right, that is just being a fantastic human. That is not the coaching pieces, as in you don't need to start coaching. And sometimes you're absolutely right, the best thing to do in the moment, it's listen to people, activate our empathy, which is also a skill. And if, only if, so let's say you're talking to the team and they vented their feelings, and then you ask, that's something, I didn't cover much in here. There's a lot to talk about coaching, folks. But in coaching, we ask for permission. Coaching is, it doesn't just start because the coaching appears. You will always ask for permission. A coaching conversation knows it is a coaching conversation because we started and we'll say, team, after all I hear here, I absolutely understand. I feel the same. I can see how bad this is. Do you think coaching would help here? Do you think we could have a coaching conversation on this? Would it be helpful? You really ask for that kind of permission, and that's how you can then start and activate your grow, and go from go to reality options and etc. But you're absolutely right, Nicolas. Sometimes all we need is really just human to human, and stop there and no coaching, please don't go coaching. And yeah, sometimes the moment has to feel right. Coaching is always about the coachee, the other person, the team. If they don't feel ready, if they're not willing, if they don't want, nothing will happen and you will annoy the heck out of them. So don't do it. So let me see if we have more questions. Okay, thanks. Well, thanks for being here, folks. Thanks for the thanks. And yeah, and if I don't see any more questions in a few, in a few more minutes, I'll then close the live stream. I hope this was useful. The remember, go tomorrow for sure in the YouTube channel. All things agile, very easy to find. You're gonna see the video in the live section. I would have put already chapters so that you can come, here and see every piece that we covered, including the questions. And I'll have a link there with the free guide explaining a little bit more, so that you don't have to take notes now or later. And I actually just show an example, and that example, by the way, is a real example that I coached a long, long time ago. And you're going to see that a coaching conversation is not that mysterious, and it feels very. If you're not paying attention, you might not even know that it's coaching. But as a coach, you do have that kind of a kind of understanding, and you show up in a different way. So I hope, I hope this was useful. And if there's no more questions, then I guess we'll be ready to then close the live stream. Thank you so much for attending. I know, it's in the middle of the day, and I've been toying with the idea of a mini class Monday, maybe lunchtime Monday, making Mondays more fun. Let me know if there's also something that you'd be interested. The day for me is I find Mondays can be quite interesting. Sometimes people feel like they dread Mondays, but we could use Mondays as well for something like this. Make sure that our week start in a very good note. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely see each other on LinkedIn, on a YouTube video, on another mini class, masterclass around there. So bye for now, folks.